Game Builder Studio.
Now let's set up the global game state manager. We're going to create a separate entity that's going to manage all of the game states. And when you're playing this game, you can think of this game as being in pretty much 4 states. You have a game started or initialized state, which is more of like a transitional state. Then you have the game running, currently running. Then you have the game being able to be paused, and a game over state. So those are about 4 states, and we're going to use a shape quick object we're going to leave the render on it because we want to be able to just see where this thing is whenever we want to reference it or click on it again. I'm going to just change the color to red. And we're going to put a state machine component on this entity. And the reason why using a state machine is a lot better than just setting properties is because this state machine can be listened for changes whenever it transitions to another state or changes states, and you can trigger different rules and different actions to execute when those states change. All right, I'll change the name of this entity to global game state, and I'm going to move it just onto the bottom scene container. It doesn't really matter what scene container it's on. And let's set up 4 different states here. You have the game started state. You have the game running state. The game paused. And the game over. And the default state is the game started state. Now we want to add a transition for this to automatically go to the running state, because this is just a transitional state that will trigger some initial default values to be set and go immediately into the running state. Now if we wanted to have a play button that initiates the actual start of the game, you could get rid of this transition and have a button that will transition this state machine into the game running state after a player clicks the play button. But I'm just going to have this auto transition. While the game is running, we want to set up a property transition to end the game if the hero runs out of lives. So we can do that very quickly here by using a property transition to go to the game over state when the hero's lives are at 0. So we want to use a property reference to point to the lives, not lives label, but the lives text. Remember the property we created earlier, the hero lives. Double click on that. And when it is equal to 0, we want this thing to transition to game over and end the game. Here's where using the state machine comes in handy. Now I'm going to add a state logic component. And this thing is going to manage the global game state changes and trigger different actions. Now I want to reference the global state machine. And you could reference a state machine on a whole entirely different entity, and we'll definitely be doing that for other components in the game to key off of this global state machine. And we're going to set up the initial values when the game is started. This is kind of like an initialization state. When the game started, we want to set up the hero's lives to 5 and reset the score and distance to 0. So we got to update all those properties. Now I want to update that property, the hero lives property, to 5. I'm going to reset it to 5, and I want to update the display. Of the lives text. So I'm going to go to the renderer, to the text property, and I want to use a reference, and I'm going to pass the value of that reference, which is going to be the hero lives property, and I'm going to set it on the display. Now I could have bound or constrained the render a text property to the properties, the hero lives property, but it's just less intensive to do it this way and just update it when you need it to be updated. I just went ahead and updated or added the update for the score distance and all the displays for those two. So if I launch this, I should be able to see the lives at 5 and scores at 0 and 0.